Hello, V&M here. Today we're talking about creative spirituality. Please listen. Thank you.
So yeah, basically I feel like it does sound egotistical to say that we might have something that could benefit others, but I'm starting to come around to that idea.
I mean, if you tell me that our next door neighbour's interested in meditation, then that tells me there's 7 billion people on the planet, and if someone who lives next door to us is interested in it, but doesn't really know that much about it, and
doesn't know anything about it, I don't think,
then, statistically speaking, that's very good odds. And maybe there are more people out there who want to engage in meditation, but don't have the opportunity, don't know where to start, don't have a person they can trust. I suppose that might come down to a lot of it. If you've got friends that do meditation, then maybe you can talk to them about it and then get into it that way. But then if you don't have anyone like that, just sort of pitching up to a meditation class is quite probably daunting. And also it's going to be a culture shock for you. I mean, I know the first time I met a Buddhist, or who was someone who did a lot of meditation rather, but I think it was a Buddhist, yeah. I met a Buddhist at the Oxford Fresh Fair, and I asked him, I think, so what's meditation about then? And he said, he was a twat basically, but he was a Buddhist twat. I don't know if you're familiar with the type, but he said, what would you like it to be about? And it wasn't so much the response being a bit, well, you're turning a question into a question there. That was part of what annoyed me. But the other part of what annoyed me was just the way he said it with such intensity, like the sheer focus in his communication took me back. And needless to say, I never did Buddhism, joined the Buddhist Society at the university, just because, if you have to deal with people like that who aren't going to meet you halfway, then, that's going to be a bit of a mind fuck. But, I got into it through the back door, I suppose, through the karate and my own self-education. But, that's a tangent. My point is, maybe there are lots of people out there who could benefit, and by me not communicating about what I know or not pushing myself forward, I'm actually depriving society. It does sound very egotistical, doesn't it? Troublingly so. Well, yeah, but balance in all things. I was thinking the other day, though, if there was something I'd like to do outside of what I'm already doing, and ways I'd like to change my life, one of the things I'd like to do is to promote spirituality, actually, not so much meditation. Yeah. Because spirituality is cut your own, basically. I like the idea of cutting your own. Me too. If you say meditation, it is, even though it can be many different ways of meditating. Oh yeah, I mean, there's only two of us and we're very different in our approaches and how we see it. Even though it is like that, it's still a subsection, I would say, of spirituality. Yeah. In most people's minds, anyway. And I like the idea of it being sort of open, completely open to interpretation. So yeah, but obviously along with that, I would like to promote meditation as well. But I think with meditation, I have some very definite ideas about the ways, or rather, of going about it, and that's what I'd like to communicate. But I accept that it's not suitable. What I would want to say about it is not suitable for everyone. No, and I think that is possibly why I went so long through my life without really having any sort of meditation practice, as I call it. Particularly, I always had an interest in it, but every time I tried to understand it a bit more, it felt so distant to me, something that I would never achieve, something that was for people that were far more advanced than I was, that it put me off. A lot of the things that I read and people I spoke to about those things in the past. And it is only in recent years, couple of years really, that it's kind of made more sense to me. So, yeah. Meditation has always been kind of a contemplation. I contemplated meditating, but I never actually did any meditation really to speak of, until I realised, well, I should rephrase that, I never did any
conscious, deliberate meditation. I actually did meditate and have meditated throughout my life, but I didn't realise that's what it was. That's the strange thing. And when I came to the realisation that I was already doing that, which is a really strange one, you think, okay, shit, I am a Zen master.
Wow.
But I didn't know it. No, that's not true. But you know what I mean. It felt that way, that realisation.
One of my work colleagues, I was talking to him about meditation, and he said that he'd had this thing when he was younger of sitting next to the washing machine and listening to the washing machine. He found that very therapeutic.
One of the things that I used to do was pace up and down in my bedroom to music. I remember doing this a lot in my teens, early teens especially.
Unfortunately, I was brought up Catholic, so therefore my meditation procedure was prayer.
Yeah, which is a meditation, really.
Yeah, but it wasn't up to me to sort of work one out, you know, it wasn't organic like that.
Yeah, mine was definitely an organic thing. So organic, in fact, that I was completely unaware that that's what I was doing.
I think, so from prayer, I mean, I think that led me into poetry, and then that was quite philosophical, and then Zen Buddhism was quite refreshingly unphilosophical from that. So I definitely like to promote meditation, and if it is as a therapy, it's probably more useful. But then there's a definite skill of not going overboard.
Yeah.
Because you got someone, actually, regardless of whether they would classify themselves as sort of needing help or not, or someone just who is interested, you know. Regardless of that, there's a definite skill in not going overboard in methodology.
Definitely. In fact, for me, the opposite approach was the better one. Just forget all of that. Forget all the stuff you're being told half the time and just sit down and shut up.
Well,
as much as possible.
For some people, yeah.
That's what worked for me. The minute I stopped trying to meditate, I realised that I was in fact meditating.
That'll work
if that
for
makes
some
sense.
People. But once again, you do have to understand that only works for some people. And some people will question that and go, well, I'm not doing anything. So
no, I know, exactly, because I think, especially in the Western culture, we're geared to do something all the time. If we're not doing anything, that it's some kind of wrong that we're doing. The very idea of doing nothing, sitting and doing nothing, is something that's foreign to a lot of people.
But you can say that, but ultimately, in order to get someone meditating, you may have to give them something to do if they require to believe that they need to have something specific to do. But that's where you get into problems, because you can get pulled overboard with the methodology, and people at first, when they get into it, they think, oh shit, yeah, this is great, I'm doing this thing, whatever it is, however it is they're doing it, and they think, yeah, great, this guy's giving me something I can do with my mind, or something I can do on my body, or just something I can do that helps me, and then you don't want to continuously reinforce that. At some point we need to branch away from that. And I think ideas like the spiritual process being creative
definitely is a good one,
helps to branch away, because if you're always doing the same thing, it's not really that creative.
My Zen tangles were meditative.
Sorry?
The colouring.
The colouring in, the Zen colouring book.
That really is a meditative thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's quite intense, it's quite focused.
Well, yeah, there's lots of ways to meditate. Yeah. Colouring in, I imagine, could be just as valid.
Yeah.
As flower arranging, or...
Exactly. But I felt like time flew a bit. Like, it was just, okay. Yeah, I've been sitting here for 3 hours.
Look, but if you hand a colouring in book to some people and say, okay, go off, meditate, they think you're nutter, and they run a mile.
Yeah.
You see, you've got to be able to suss people out on the way they can get into this whole spiritual process. It's not always the way that you got into it. It's not.
No, not at all. No.
So, you know, exercise extreme caution and to avoid just repetitive actions. Basically, that's what I would say. Because.
But for me, I don't feel like I need to consciously try and avoid or do anything. my whole premise when it comes to meditation is just do. Just sort of do, and this too shall pass. Then it naturally forms into something else that way, for me. I don't think, like I could ever particularly, or maybe in a few years' time, because obviously is a more seasoned meditator than I am, full stop. Or so I thought, conscious meditator. But for me, my best approach with spirituality, full stop, is to just do something as long as the inclination is there, and then let it go and move forward and move on. And that's how it works for me. It's very much a flow. So there are certain little things that I might consider sort of the ones that stay, but most of it is a very kind of organic flow, I think.
Yeah, what we want to try and avoid though is circular flow, where you go back to where you start and then you keep going round and round.
Yeah,
and
see,
round.
that's not really happened to me.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
But we're not really talking here about what works for you. We're talking about
no, but
how
I
we
feel
can
that
approach.
talking about what works for me will get people thinking about what would work for them. That's the whole point. I can only speak from my own experience. You know, I'm not a master of anything. So what I can give is my own experience, in the hope that it might engage someone enough to think, okay, what's my experience? What could I do? What could work for me?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, well, take the neighbour, for example. Now, I've no idea what type of meditation would help.
Yeah. So
Well,
to go in with a certain type that you think would help could actually come across as quite condescending, I think. I think maybe just giving them the idea of, you know, or a variety of ideas, one might be kind of more appealing, and they might think, okay, let's try that first. And then you also give them the wherewithal to think, I can move it forward from there. I can see where that goes myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I wouldn't. It makes perfect sense.
That's how I see it anyway. You're not saying this works for me, so it must work for you. You're just giving people the tools to work it out for themselves.
But how do you know you're giving a full tool set?
Well, you haven't got to.
Menu?
Just a few, just enough, I think.
So I think when you look at how people should start meditating, you should consider two things. Firstly is, how does their mind kind of naturally work anyway? Try and find that out. What type of thinker are they? How do they think? You know. And the other thing is the opposite of that. What things do they tend not to do naturally? And I think when getting people interested in meditation, they tend to become first interested in the things that they do naturally, that they're already doing, but they're not really doing consciously. And so when you bring that into the conscious, deliberate action kind of sphere, they go, oh, shit, I'm meditating. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you go, well, you kind of would, but you knew that before, didn't you? And you're like, oh yeah, I've always been meditating.
Exactly, that's how it happened for me.
But then I think you kind of need to look at what you don't do as much. Go outside your habits as well. Then once you've developed that, you can then start to think, well, what don't I do? Why haven't I gone consciously? And then that leads you on to the next step, and that kind of just leaves a path after that.
Yeah.
Because there's always somewhere else, you know? It's like a journey.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see all of it. Spirituality in general, really.
And there's all sorts of different ways, interesting ways to meditate.
I don't think I could ever get bored, to be honest with you, with that, at this point. Always learning.
But I think, you know, it's the first step, the step that gets them into thinking, oh, I'm meditating. It's actually the first two steps, I would say, gets them going. The first step is you do what comes naturally for them, but you do it deliberately. And then the second step is you do the thing that doesn't come naturally, try to do the thing that doesn't come naturally for them. And then from there, the whole journey unfolds. So that's kind of where I think how it unfolds. And if you take the first step, you're kind of looking at most religions to kind of have the first step. Like, I will be doing Buddhism meditation because I like that. It just comes naturally to me, so I just keep doing it. Or I will be doing Christianity prayer meditation because that comes naturally to me. And then you just get stuck in it, especially because everyone else around you is doing it.
You see that.
But where it comes like the second step is to go, well, what am I not doing? That's going to break you out of that pattern, and then it sets you free. And so, take the first step to get going, and the second step is to break free.
I know someone who is of a spiritual ilk that is very eclectic in the way they go about their spirituality. And what I mean by that, and this probably might upset a few people, is that they were brought up in a religious way, i.e. in this case I think Catholic.
So that's not going to upset anyone?
No, but she does not consider herself to be Catholic now. She considers herself to be pagan, I guess. And I think, so she's studied many different deities, gods, systems, and her spirituality seems to be very much a mishmash of all of the different things, including Catholicism. So as a pagan, she has an altar, and on that altar is the statue of the Virgin Mary and rosary beads alongside things of a more, in quotes, pagan ilk, other deities from different cultures, Nordic, Egyptian, Greek, whatever.
Who's that upsetting?
I think some people feel that kind of spirituality is very magpie, like it's just too much of a mishmash, that it's taking things from wherever and bunging it together in the way you want, somehow seems to offend some people.
Well, not if it's a friend of yours.
No, it's not a friend of mine.
Oh, but you said you knew them.
I don't know them personally. They're a YouTuber who I'm quite fascinated by.
Oh yeah, I mean, all sorts of YouTubers offend me.
Yeah, but I don't feel offended by it because I take my hat off to it, in fact, because it's just going with how that person feels, basically. And ultimately, what's wrong with that?
Well, there's nothing necessarily wrong with going how you feel. But sometimes you have to step back.
Spirituality is supposed to be about.
Well, as soon as you say it's supposed to be about something, then you've gone wrong, haven't you?
Not really.
Well, yeah, I do think that because people have habits, like it or not. People have things that they do over and over and over.
Yes, but you're saying a habit in every regard is a bad thing, and sometimes it's not.
Well, not saying it's a bad thing. It's good or bad is irrelevant. I mean, people don't need to meditate at all. People don't even need to have...
The habit of meditation is a good thing, surely.
I don't judge it. It's not good or bad. I mean, you know yourself, you've done meditation. The more you do meditation, the more pissed off with other people you get in the world. You know? It's not all about light and
no, it's
good
not. It certainly
and right.
isn't. Yeah, it certainly isn't. Shadow work, as I call it.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, like it or not, you have unconscious habits and people, if you don't kind of realise that, you expand on them and form into these cyclic patterns, which is kind of the antithesis to me of spiritual development.
Yeah, I get that. But then there has to be some habit.
You always have habit. It's a natural thing to have. You can't avoid it. You've always got some habit. But the point is, as soon as you become conscious that you do have this habit, justifying it as a good habit isn't necessarily, it could be a good habit, but it isn't necessarily a good enough justification for staying in that one habit. And so therefore to spiritually expand, not saying go out and do something bad, but what I'm saying is perhaps consider taking off a tangent to that direction, that cyclic pattern. And again, just going back to the idea of exploration, I can't say that I always practice what I preach. I have habits. And I think probably most people in spirituality are hypocrites anyway. So I'm just going to say right now, I'm a hypocrite. But, in terms of how I would have tried to approach teaching is meditation would be, as I said, just the first step gets you into a cyclic pattern, which then elevates your consciousness, but then to take off at a tangent, to do something you're not doing, but then to keep doing that. And then it becomes a journey. And then you always have this sort of infinite pathway leading out in front of you,
And that's how
and
I feel
behind
now.
you.
Yeah, and that's how I feel now. I can see where I've been, and I'm looking forward to where I'm going. It's very much something I am enjoying.
Exactly,
at
it
this time in my
gives
life.
meaning to the life.
Yeah, it does. You think, I could never have done that a few years ago. That just wasn't in my sphere of knowledge, whatever that thing might be. And now it is, and I'm proud of it.
So I would like to promote spirituality as a creative thing. You know, again, in order to be creative, you do have to kind of break out these patterns. You know, good art sometimes is the one that just goes off and does something different to what, you know, has been done. You know, it's original. And it's not always, you know, it's fine if you want to draw hundreds of pictures and you kind of have that style and you find it meditative, and that's all great. But just one day, maybe you're going to think, you know, fuck it, I'm going to do something different. And maybe you'll develop because of that.
I think the creative, or should I say, artistic part of meditation or spiritual practice has come into the fore more with me recently, and using several different mediums to do that as well. So the colouring, the mixed media collage, as I call it, which is a mishmash of all sorts in itself, and also writing I've got back into recently as well. So these are all things that are recent progressions on my journey. I'm not sure what made me do that in the first place, what the catalyst was, but I've found that I've learnt quite a few things again that I didn't know before by doing that. So,
but all that art you're doing at the moment is for yourself, really, mainly.
Yeah, it is a meditation. It's making me learn, but I think what started this conversation off tonight was the fact that I said, well, however egotistical it sounds, that we have a skill set now between the two of us that could potentially be useful to other people. So yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, of course it's for me. It's my spiritual path.
Yeah, but what I was trying to say...
it can be for other people as well.
Exactly. So what I was trying to say, look at the other side of the coin. You make all this art, express yourself as an exploration of yourself. But let's not forget, the other side of the coin, like even before we started talking about this, I was saying, look at how Zen came in and merged with culture, Japanese culture, with tea ceremony, with kendo, with archery, with flower arranging, with, I don't know.
Origami.
Oh, tea making. Did I say tea making?
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, it merged with the culture. And what I mean by that is for me, art is both self-expression, but it can also be pushed off into the culture, and the culture can develop too, not just you. And therefore, you don't have to have that tension between you and the world around you, because everyone's off doing stupid, ignorant things, and you're the only enlightened person.
Yeah, I don't like that outlook.
But if you then start to create things that you can push into the culture, i.e. artistic things that come deep within you, then slowly, of course, they start to affect the culture. And this is why we started making these recordings in the first place.
I mean, this is a creative process in and of itself, really, isn't it?
And us going and, in quote, teaching, because you don't really teach meditation.
No, exactly. You just put some ideas in people's head. I suppose you could call that teaching, but it's not really, not in a conventional sense. It's just about being open about what you think. Promoting openness with regards to any kind of spiritual practice, I suppose.
Yeah. So us promoting meditation would be something else we're putting into the culture, which can help transform, you know, and make a better future for everyone. And it is only a small thing, but I think it would be more meaningful for anyone to be able to say, well, I'm interacting with the culture. I'm not just feeling like at odds with it all the time. And you're going to feel a sense of more of a sense of integratedness, because, you know, you can't get away from culture, and, you know, we're humans and we're social animals, and that's just the way we are. We're not lone wolves, because you wouldn't survive. We are not with our skill sets. We just wouldn't survive. Like, to make babies, at least need two of you at least. And then, like, to protect them, probably going to need a bigger group. So tough. You have to form groups. You have to interact with culture. And the culture does need to develop. And we know.
Yeah,
He's got this
lately I've
idea
been feeling quite down in the mouth about a lot of what's going on, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it really does bite me, where I don't want it to, and I just look at things and I go, this is all fucking dark. This is just twisted. But instead of taking that to an even darker place, what you need to try and think of ways to make it better, improve it. And the spiritual thing, I think, is what's needed. Spiritual, not religious, spiritual.
Yeah, spiritual.
There's a huge difference.
Creative spirituality.
Yeah.
That's if I could put it in a nutshell, I would like to put it in.
Because I think humanity, as a rule, sorry to cut you in there, humanity as a rule is just my own perception of things. That's kind of hit a void in a way, and we're trying to fill that void with nonsense in this culture now. It's just gone mad, and it's just getting people to think along these lines a bit more again.
Yeah, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No, I know this is huge stuff I'm talking about, and I'm not setting out to conquer the world.
We're not saviours.
No, exactly. I'm not the next coming of something. And neither is M, although sometimes he thinks he is, but...
Damn right.
It's just that I think the next saviour is all of us, quite honestly. That's the whole point. The idea of God in human form is all of us.
I don't know about that, but what I do know is instinctively we have a social side and we need to integrate that into our meditative practice, and one of those ways of doing that is through cultural interaction as a meditative exercise, and that really boils down to creativity and expression into the wider society. And whether I do that because I want to heal the world, that's not really my motivation here. My motivation here is just instinct. We have a creative instinct.
Whereas for me, there is a small part of me that does want to heal the world. I can't help it. That's just the way I'm built. I don't, for whatever reason, think that it's entirely possible to do that on my own. But as a human race, as a whole human race, I think it's definitely possible to do that. But, you know, there has to be some people, you know, pushing that process on. And I'd like to be one of those people. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Well, there's plenty of them on the internet.
There are people who really are trying,
like if you look round, I don't see any round here.
No, exactly. I think, to me, there's definitely, okay, that's one thing, and I'm looking for that online.
Yeah.
But I can't really see it in my everyday life.
And it's pretty stark.
Although, having said that, I think I've said this before on the podcast, that the more I do talk to people or try and kind of evoke a conversation like this, the more I'm surprised that people are actually thinking about this stuff. So I'm not sure why there's such an issue with it going forward. I'm not sure what stops people being more open about it. Well, I am, because we haven't been that open about it. You know, it's a conundrum to me.
Well, you know, I think if people were more open about it, you'd see disagreements about certain things. You would see disputes.
But we see that anyway.
Yeah, no. But on the other hand, it's a potential learning environment, and it's just, I think, a question of promoting spirituality in a way that people feel like they can pursue their own path.
Yeah, exactly.
But have access to other people's knowledge.
Yeah.
We don't really want to have reality conflicts where
nothing
people are
has to be taken as gospel.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically,
people are arguing about what is A, is A B or C?
Because it's all of the above, well, essentially. All of it and none of it.
It's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
As to, if you can demonstrate the truth, then go ahead. But if you can't, then really it's just academic. It's not. Spirituality it can be academic, but it seems like when it is, no one really benefits, and it puts people off, I think, as well. Like, if you can see just a group of people bickering about the nature of reality, then, I mean, how fucking stupid is that?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's utterly bonkers.
So, really, that's why I like meditation, because it's so sort of method oriented. And so you can't really have a dispute. You can have a dispute of a method if you're doing something together with someone, but if you're just doing it on your own, you can't really have a method dispute.
Anything goes.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I like the anything goes approach to spirituality.
So that I'd like to, you need to look after that. And that's something I'd like, if I was promoting it, I'd be very keen to sort of stop that from going down. I would like to see people feeling like that it was their choice, everything was their choice, and they could...
Because it was.
Yeah, because ultimately it was, yeah. And that we don't have to get sucked in by these magnetic personalities who in the past have...
The guru.
Have taken it upon themselves to try and spread some kind of gospel.
Yeah.
And that's one of, as I said, I'll just repeat myself, that's why I like meditation, because it sort of avoids that quite nicely. It doesn't completely, because there's sort of gospel in approach.
You're your own guru.
Exactly. Everyone needs to be their own guru.
Yeah, that's perfect.
If you're not your own guru and someone else is your guru, well, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
And that's me speaking as a guru. Stick that in your guru.
That made no sense.
I'm an anti-guru.
He's an anti-guru guru.
Anti-guru guru.
Yeah.
I've just nullified myself. I've taken all the... I've discredited myself.
Beat that, guru.
Yeah. I'm so enlightened that I've proved myself wrong.
And admitted it.
Yeah, but then that was wrong as well.
Oh, don't. Getting into Alan Watts territory.
This is where your brain turns off.
Yeah.
Which is what I actually wanted to achieve.
You have achieved enlightenment.
When you're so confused that you know what the fuck is going on.
You end up saying the only thing I know is that I know nothing.
And you know that you're enlightened.
Yeah.
And then once upon knowing that you're enlightened, you're no longer enlightened. And then realising that you're no longer enlightened, upon enlightenment, you once again momentarily become enlightened. Having realised that you've momentarily become enlightened,
enlightenment isn't something that's constant. This is something I have learnt, so maybe I am enlightened, but that feeling of enlightenment comes and goes. It's like an ebb and flow of an ocean. Like 1 minute it's there, the next minute it's gone again, and I think, no, back to confusion again.
It's like a stoner.
And then it comes on again, and I think, I got it.
And then you lost it.
And then it's like a dream. Now I can't remember. What did I get?
That's what stone people experience all the time.
Yeah, well.
They think they're enlightened, don't they?
Well, I don't know. Do they?
Well, yeah.
Talk a lot of bollocks.
Just like, oh, I've got something really important, and then you lost it. But you knew you had it.
You had a really good point to make there.
It was fucking amazing.
And then it's annoying because you can't remember it.
And then you get paranoid that whether people are understanding you or not.
They're usually not.
Because you had such a great point, but you lost it, and then, oh shit. Does anyone get me?
I do that so often. I have an epiphany that's just amazing, and I think, yep, that's it, I've got it. I've got the key to all existence in my brain box. Oh shit, no, it's gone again. Damn it. What was that?
Yes, but anyway, that let's not worry about that aspect.
I've given up worrying about it. I realise that it's an ebb and flow now.
But going back to the therapy aspect of this, where we started, what can you hope to gain by starting on a meditative path? And, practically speaking.
Yes, but I already have a problem. You shouldn't be hoping to gain anything particularly.
No, well, I was when I started, and I think everyone would be.
But that was a hindrance to me.
Yeah, of course.
That hoping to gain something.
Yeah, I know that. I know that now.
And it wasn't until I realised that I shouldn't hope to gain anything that things started happening. For me, anyway.
Yeah, but in order to start on a path, people may only entertain the notion if they think that they stand to gain something. And I think when it comes to gain in terms of meditation being a type of therapy for people who consider themselves to need therapy, I'm not talking about just people who are open-minded and kind of want to explore. I'm talking about people who are maybe considered who have issues that they're becoming aware of and they want to try and do something about. You know, they're hoping to be able to overcome certain issues in that scenario. And yeah, like you said, game can hold you back, but it might be a starting point. And that's what you're going to get if you start promoting meditation. You will have people coming to you looking for something, and it'll probably be different, slightly different for everyone. Yeah, but they'll be looking for something, and really, that's the fuel that should start a very creative process as a promoter in you to sort of point them towards something that they think, oh shit, yeah, that's actually pointing me in a good direction now. You know, that's actually helped. But you saying that to me has actually helped me to go towards something that I think I wanted. Yeah. And then, you know, it's superficial at that starting point because you need
definitely.
you need to then sort of expand them or encourage them to expand rather. But yeah, everyone has that starting point. For me, it was just I wanted to understand. I wanted to know if God existed. Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. You know, but for other people, it would be different. You know. And
for me, I think it was a want to understand the human mind, particularly that done it. But there are so many aspects to why I think there probably is a part of me that's always wanted to expand, and I don't think I'm alone in that. I think most people do. There was, in essence, something there in the first place.
So do you still want to understand the human mind?
Yeah.
So really, you're still there. You're still there on that.
Yeah, and I think I always will be on the first page. I don't consider myself to be any further along than the first page, if that's what you mean at this point.
Yeah. So anyway, in terms of promoting meditation, I think you need to be able to interact with someone and find out enough about them, and then for them to open up enough for you to be able to point them towards what I might call a spiritual desire. Like a spiritual desire, like what is their spiritual current vector where they want to go towards, and then just enable that through a meditative practice. And that I think would be your starting point. And then obviously we can talk about sort of veering off and on a tangent at a later date.
I'd be inclined to say, okay, if someone at a later date does have some passion and ideas of their own, I would be the listener and they would tell me what they've learnt. And it's almost like a kind of tennis match, if you like, of ideas in order to help everyone grow.
That's
and there's
really
not one person that's higher than anyone else. It's a kind of, okay, equality. Now it's an equality. Yeah, you tell me what you've learnt because that could be helpful to me. Exactly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't like the idea of guru and hierarchy when it comes to spirituality, because I don't personally believe there's anyone on the planet that essentially is any further along than I am.
Okay, so that's a really good point.
It's something that we all need to do together.
So when someone first enters this, they're assuming that they're going to find people who are higher, you know? You can't get around that, that's just going to happen. But what, as Fee just said, it's a really good point. Once you've established their spiritual vector and pointed them in the right direction, they're still going to be thinking of you as higher, yeah?
But what I would like to say at that point is go away and have your own experiences.
And come back.
And then come back to me and tell me, because I'd like to know what you think about that.
Yeah.
You know.
And at that point, then it goes towards equality, and then we can say, okay, well, that's interesting. Let me try and meditate the way you just meditated.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to try that, and then you can do it together, perhaps, and then
it's an idea swapping.
Yeah.
It's not someone's better than someone else.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
which I find in most most religion, anyway, and that's one of the reasons why I probably don't favour that.
I mean, I would say from my martial arts, for want of a better word, the way it's just panned out now is that I do interact on an equality kind of level with the people I've trained with recently, even though they are fresh to it when they come to me.
I think sort of to have the kind of humbleness about you to realise that you could learn from them as well, though, is a good thing.
Well, obviously, you have to put them into a position where they actually feel like, I have something to offer.
I have an idea I'd like to share. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think the creative aspect of it is really important to get them to start thinking that way. Is to say, what you're going to do is you're going to create a type of meditative practice that will work for you. And what I'm interested in is that creation. And I want to try and meditate the way you meditate, even though you came to me in the first place. I actually want to try and do it the way you're doing it, because that not only expands me, but also puts your mind into thinking, shit, no, this person is not better than me. He's just different to me.
Yeah, which I think would be so useful.
In terms of spirituality and community, we don't want this hierarchy appearing where just these charismatic, magnetic people start attracting people, and then you get these little sort of worship groups, idol worship groups.
I'm not into idol worship, really.
And that's kind of all these lessons that I've learned, I guess, from the martial aspect, for want of a better word, things that I think I can plug into it as well. But
so it's not a case of we've got something to teach the world, it's that everyone has something to teach the world.
And we're passionate about encouraging that to happen.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a good ethos for,
And I think what you'll find is that passion will be contagious.
Exactly.
So just wanted to talk about the practical side of, I mean, not that what we said isn't practical, but I mean like even more practical. So for example, how can I put myself across to other people, just anyone, in a way that says, I am interested in what you're, I am someone who's trying to promote creative spirituality, and I'm interested in you as a person, because I'm a promoter of creative spirit. I want you to engage in this kind of creative spirituality. If you're not already engaged in it, I would like you to engage in it. And I'm interested in what your spiritual vector is. What would you want to get if you ever went down a spiritual path? You know, is there something that you want to go and explore, spiritually speaking? Anyway, it doesn't mean have to be, I don't have to be involved, but like, I want to sort of project that.
You see, I think that's great, but it seems to suggest that people aren't already on a spiritual path. And where I differ from you in that is I believe that most people are. Maybe not to the extent that we are, but I think spirituality is something that does reside in everyone, to an extent.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it doesn't.
Yeah,
what I'm saying
just
is
like a spectrum.
Don't forget where we started this conversation about helping people.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so practically speaking, how do you set that up? Because at the moment, we're just sitting here talking, and I don't really think that's really helping anyone, especially not around us in our immediate environment. And I feel like I'm not that enthusiastic about the internet, as a form of helping people. Because ultimately, people just find what they search for on the internet, which is only ever going to be sort of limited to
their own personal interests. Yeah.
Exactly, and I do think that the human relationship, we are supposed to be around each other and be relating to one another.
In some regard, I guess you could say the internet probably is a hindrance there.
Yes.
Because if we're not engaging with the people around us, we're looking for what we want from people that we don't know online.
Yes.
And it's all a bit
You're just
unbalanced.
Really. Basically that is a recipe to reinforce your own point of view.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be someone out there who agrees with you.
Yeah, or has a similar kind of ethos.
And so really it doesn't lead to that much development. I was saying the other day to my friends at work that what I'd like to see on the internet is something that tells you about what you don't want. Because at the moment we've got search engines, a lot of search engines, which basically give you what you want, and then there's keywords and videos are associated with other similar videos. And what I'd like to see is a way of searching which gives you things that you don't want to find.
You know when you can search for something, right? So obviously you're not going to search for something you don't want. But what I do notice is on some search engines is they'll give, like, well, not on search engines actually, but on certain sites where you'll type something in. As an example, I'm going to use eBay, right? Because what they do is, as well as your one that you wanted to look at, which they list, they also give you other options at the top of the page that you might not necessarily have typed in yourself.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing we need.
Well, I think that's what...
On a search engine.
No, that's the antithesis of what I was... That's opposite of what I was saying.
Why? Because sometimes it's not things that you particularly would be drawn to initially, but you might see it and you go, let's see what that's about then. Or let's see what that's about then. And it would branch you off in different directions, so you're not necessarily looking at the same things all the time.
Okay, I don't want to argue that point because it's a tangent, so that's fine. But I'm talking about the human, interactive, human, right here in my living room or on the street or wherever, in the pub or whatever, that person. I know you to a very deep level. I say no. It's more like I feel like I can open up to you and you feel like you can open up to me. So it's like we can have an honest exchange and, cool shit comes out of that. Because actually it's like we're fusing our minds together. But, with most other people, that's not the case. And I think part of me wanting to promote creative spirituality is the desire for people, for finding a way to open up and other people to open up to me in a more sort of integrated kind of way and not just being isolated. So it's a part of me wanting, my desire to want to reach out to people and make a meaningful contact with, which I feel like I don't really have enough. I mean, I have some, but I don't have enough.
And I don't think you're alone in that, that's for sure. I think this is probably a global problem.
Yes. And that being the case, I feel like justified in that being okay for that desire to manifest. And what are the practical steps that I can take to do this? Because I was thinking, what would I say to someone? I could say, well, my name is Martin and I'm interested in promoting creative spirituality. Silence.
And the first question would be, what's that?
And that's exactly the question I want them to ask. What do you think it means?
No, don't do that. You just criticise that very technique.
No. And then I can say, well, for me, what it means is exploration of the self, exploration of existence, exploration of experience, and development due to exploration of you. And you becoming kind of what you want to be. So there's an aspect of desire, but also there's an aspect of healing as well. I think they're two sort of major dynamics. So like some people are into...
We could always make it as a sort of social talk and make the basic premise of these talks spirituality, encompassing everything. Because I've noticed that as soon as you do get someone talking about spirituality, most people want to.
People fucking explode, yeah.
Yeah, and so if you kind of make it some kind of social gathering where the basic premise is to talk about spirituality, I bet that would be quite popular.
Yeah, but can you get up in front of a crowd?
You don't need to. I guess you could do it in a more formal way where everyone gets the chance to be up in front of the crowd.
Like a circle.
So you'd have to be a catalyst for that. You'd have to start it off. But then after a while, what would happen is you'd get people wanting to come forward, jumping over each other to come forward even in certain circumstances. And the reason I say this is because when years ago now, I did the Alpha course.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
As soon as you get the ball rolling, all you got to do is give it the first little shunt and then it gains momentum and then you can't shut people up because actually when people feel comfortable and they realise that they're in an environment that allows them to talk about this stuff, they want to, and it's sometimes very passionate as well.
I think that's if you have like a circle and you go through one at a time and And like you get people talking, and people will talk, and then but there might be some people who don't want to talk in a circles format.
Yeah,
but I think that you should then split it into a different format where you get like a one-on-one kind of thing.
Yeah, you could do lots of different social exercises. You know, you could
do a one-on-one type of thing.
Go a big group or
just
smaller groups and
randomly put people together and then see what they talk about.
See what comes out of it. Yeah,
and then those pairs can then come back to the circle and tell people what they talked about. Using their combined confidence rather than just depending on their own sort of ability to communicate.
But essentially, you don't want it to be too formal, I don't think.
No.
Because it won't end up formal.
But you do need to direct it.
There has to be a slight structure to it, but only slightly, I think.
Like anyone knows who's chaired a meeting that, you know, sometimes you get disputes and you kind of need to be able to control that. And you don't want it just polarising into us versus them kind of scenario.
No, exactly. No.
And it's not about, as we said before, it's not really about truth anyway. So really, you kind of, and then maybe after you've done all that discussion, you can actually think, well, you know, okay, let's put it on a different way. Well, what kind of exercises, spiritual exercises, can you think of doing? You know, can you create? And then let's go and do these kind of spiritual exercises and see what happens. Yeah. And then recount our experiences.
I've always also had this notion in my head for a while of doing like a mass meditation.
You know, the thing I don't like about that is
I don't know why.
It just seems really silly. Like, doesn't it seem silly?
A little bit.
Everyone just sitting there in silence.
But I also think that would be pretty cool.
It would be cool.
If you've got a large group of people, eventually, to do that, to sit there with you, that would be pretty cool. It would be a bit of a spectacle, wouldn't it?
I just think, like, yeah, okay, sit in silence, maybe for a period, whilst you're meditating. You're doing like an internal exercise that you're doing on your own, a solo exercise. But, you know, there are also like interactive types of meditative exercises that obviously we should be doing if we're getting together in a group, you know? It's obvious. We shouldn't just be alone in our own mind space necessarily. Part of, I think, of the meditative process is to bring Zen into human interaction as well as just a human isolated experience. There's lots of different ways you can go, and the group can invent different mechanisms and ways it wants to.
I'm sure the more people we have, the more ideas we'll have ultimately. Then it will sort of spread out from there.
So that sounds good. But in order to get someone to even think about attending such a group, and going back to the real street conversion, for want of a better word, like, I have friends, I have lots of friends, I'm sure some of them, quite a lot of them probably have a spiritual aspect that they want to develop, but I don't access that part of them because it's like, that's private. I don't want to go into that with them because, you know, really that's their path, and it should always be their path and not something that I interfere with. But on the other hand, I know that people will benefit from an interaction. So it's all very well having a church, but how do you get people to the church? I'm sorry I keep using sort of antiquated religious dogmatic conversionist terms here, but, you know, I kind of feel like it, unfortunately, it's just what the way I was brought up, and maybe the language doesn't really that exists yet for the proper way to talk about this type of what I actually want to achieve.
Explorative spirituality.
Yeah, exactly. I'm talking about a conversation, a way of starting a conversation, and that conversation blossoming into actually a spiritual experience in and of itself, perhaps. That's what I'm talking about. And I think maybe, like I said, perhaps the first step is to say, well, I'm interested in promoting creative spirituality. What's creative spirituality? Blah, 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 blah. See what happens. And then you can say, well, creative spirituality to me, like, imagine, you know, you've got a group of people all talking about what their spiritual vector is, you know. I think you're going to have to start just trying to have a go and seeing what happens, perhaps, just to sort of get into this, like, because obviously, there's no set procedure that you can just go along with, because everyone's different. Yeah. But just knowing perhaps like the kind of direction, being able to set the direction at the first point, and not feeling like, oh, I'm intruding on your consciousness by trying to do that, you know. And that would give me so much of a sense of self, of happiness, to be able to connect with people.
Yeah.
And to be able to reach out to people and just to make the connection, even if it is only momentarily, you know, and then not a lasting connection, you know. Because once you've gone over that threshold, that you know that you're welcome back, you know, as long as you had a good time the first time round.
Yeah. And
it deepens your relationship.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what this is all about, really, isn't it?
It's part of what it's all about, yeah. It's part of who we are is social.
Yeah, and I think, especially now in these times, we're more and more becoming isolated from each other, and that is to our detriment. And that is, you know, a key point to all of this. It's bringing connection between people back on a deeper level.
Yeah, deeper than it was before, and perhaps it became more and more shallow.
It's very shallow
in our history.
Now. Yeah, it's very shallow.
In my lifetime, even.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if the communications revolution or
has made us communicate less, which is quite strange.
Yeah, you'd have thought it would be the other way around, but perhaps it's just a matter of time. Maybe this is just a ticking time bomb, because, you know, people perhaps feel, a lot of people feel isolated. It won't take much to sort of shoot back together again.
No, I mean, if you think about it in sort of human terms, the advent of, you know, this kind of communication technology it's in its infancy, and I don't think that we're quite used to it yet. We haven't figured it all out. That's a process that I think we need to work out. We need to sort that.
Well, I think the major missing part of our communications technology mostly is sound oriented. Secondarily, it's visually oriented, but not at all physically oriented. You can't touch someone, you know. And
I mean, I know
we're talking sort of academically and kind of talking at the moment, but sometimes, you know,
it's like I have a real issue sometimes with texting and sending emails, because to me it feels empty.
It's good for
sending
some
a
things.
text.
Good for something.
You know, I mean,
but organising
also,
things is good.
You know, you might have, you know, like exclamation marks and question marks and that, but it's something that I struggle with. I just find it empty a lot of the time.
But when if you look at business, you know, business thrives off email in particular, simply because everything's in writing. You have to be clear and concise and short, because you don't want to spend ages.
For actual personal communication, for, you know, just having connection with other people,
it's not great.
It's not great at all. It really sucks, and I do actually have issues with that personally.
So you know, I would say email is good for organisation, in the sense that, you know, it's what businesses use to organise, and they do it successfully. So but, you know, really, when it comes to your friends, you don't want to be a friend via email particularly. You know, no, it's not really that meaningful.
No, it's not.
You want a friend in your living room, you know, and having a cup of tea. That's more meaningful. Because
I think what it lacks, when someone is talking to you one-to-one, you get to see their expressions, their movements, and a lot of communication is based on just that, not necessarily what they're saying particularly. It's the body language of the whole thing, and that's what's lacking when it comes to communication technology. You don't see that side of things. You don't get that part of the communication, and that then becomes unbalanced as far as I'm concerned.
You can use a video call, but you've got latency, the accuracy of the screen is not great, so you don't get to see everything. People don't like video calls because they don't necessarily want you to see them when you're talking to them.
No, especially if you're throwing a sickie at work,
and the fact you can't move the camera, there's all sorts of limitations to a video call that just aren't the same as actually being in someone's presence. And even business people know this. Like, you know, they they know the limitation of the conference call or whatever, and and then they prefer to actually have real face-to-face meetings, and actually a lot more gets done.
So it is felt.
Yeah, so
in very human terms, then, isn't
exactly.
it? Right.
I mean, you can't replace years and years of evolution where we've actually had to communicate within each other's presence.
Yeah.
With the micro scale of technology, it hasn't been around for that long.
No, exactly.
And it will never be. It will never replace, unless we become cyborgs in virtual reality, which is a whole other story. And not one that I'm keen to promote, to be quite honest. But
no, it's a bit scary to me. I'm sure there are people that want to promote that. But
well, yeah. The question is, I guess, do I have the bollocks to turn round to people I've known for years and say to them that I'm interested in promoting creative spirituality? You know, can I break that pattern?
Can we?
Well, you know, I'm sure we could together, perhaps. But then that would feel like a mob-handed kind of thing, wouldn't it?
What, with just two of us?
Yeah,
hardly a mob.
It's 2 on 1. It's a mob.
Not really.
It's
and why would it be one?
Well, I'm talking about this kind of, you know, we're going back to your group thing. Yeah, that will just work. I guarantee that will work. But the problem is you have the issue of recruitment for groups. Yes, you can advertise and people may just show up. Who knows? Depends how you do it. But ultimately, to me, if I couldn't project that to people that I've known for a while, yeah, I would feel it's not good enough. You know, what about all these people I've known for years that I feel like I can't reach out to, but yeah, I'm having fucking amazing conversations with random strangers. You know what I mean? It would be good, and I'd like it, but I'd like to feel like, yeah, I can do this with people who I've got into a rut with as well. And to be honest, like, there's some of them, right, I think more that I actually feel like they need that help. Like, well, obviously there's people out there that need help that I don't know, but there's people in my life that they need help, and I don't know how to, or I haven't known how to actually go about doing that. But like, just thinking here and now, this kind of idea of creative spirituality, I think, thinking of the people that I'm thinking of, actually enable them. And it would actually make me want to go back to them and converse if I felt like they were engaged in that process. And it's like, what's got me into a rut with these people is it's just like, they just don't want to change, you know, it's almost like stuck.
No, I don't think it's a don't want. I think they're in the same situation as you. They don't know how. You just sat there and said you don't have the balls to do that.
No,
maybe
I didn't
they don't either.
I said, do I? As a question.
Yeah. So they're probably thinking the same thing. Do I? Can I? Have I got the balls?
Well, maybe
to actually be more open about that stuff.
I don't know if they are.
I'm sure some of them
a lot of just suffering.
Yeah.
Just suffering.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about how, me in particular, probably. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I'll give it a try and see where I get.
I'd like to do that because I like to talk to people about this kind of stuff. Gets people fired up. People can be quite inspirational if they're given the tools to do so. All people.
Right. I guess since we've both stopped talking, that must be the end of it.
That's the natural end to the tangent we've both been on for the last hour and 19 minutes.